Okay, today we have Michael Charming on the show. How's it going, Michael?
It's been awesome. It's been nice. It's a Monday afternoon here. Been cloudy, but otherwise very good. Very excited.
Okay, I'm just going to play the intro and then we'll get straight into it. Hey everyone, my name is Erik, and it occurred to me that trying to have a meaningful discussion on Facebook among friends and communicate important ideas is about as hopeless as trying to find lasting peace and inner happiness by smoking crack. So we're doing something different. This is YouTube. We're going to have long format discussions. It's me and my friends from around the world, and these are our ideas. So today we have Michael on the show, and Michael is, his name is Michael Charming, but I know him as Charming Michael, actually. I met him in 2012 in London. We were living in the same house when I first moved there, and instantly I got introduced to this vivacious and smiling and laughing character. Yeah, see, there it is. I prepared a clip. Anyways, at the time, he was working in a bank, but he would fly with me and other people and anywhere he could on the weekend to, any part of Europe. Mostly I saw him in Eastern Europe because that's where I was hanging out on the weekends. And basically, we had lots of fun back then. I've just got his laugh back then kind of sounded like this.
Really?
And I'll show more of that clip in a second, but yeah, that's how I know Michael. Since I haven't lived in London for a while, I have mostly lost touch with him, but this new initiative to keep in touch and catch up with my friends on Facebook has brought me today together on Zoom with Michael, and we're recording this so that all you can learn about how he transitioned into becoming an orgasm and relationship coach. So, Michael, why don't you introduce me and how you know me?
Hi, Erik. Hello. It's really good to connect with you. Hello, everyone. Erik's friends and other people who will be listening to this, watching to this. My name is Michael Charming. I am orgasm coach and relationship expert, certified bodyworker, international speaker, and author of Amplify Your Orgasm. I'm currently working on my second book. It's a self-help book on politics and also working on creating online courses. So, Erik, we have known each other for almost 8 years now.
More.
We first,
yeah.
9 years. We first
2011 was when I met you.
2011, and now 2020. Wow.
Over there. Yeah.
I think with the friendships, over the years, generally, we always have new friends coming in and old friends going out, but some friends continue to stay together because there is something you find common. We all have our fast-paced life, but there's something common that you find and you continue to stay with those friends. And I think you are one of those persons that I really cherish, the friendship with. We got connected on so many different levels, isn't it? Yeah, what are you saying?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, and you remember me when I was living in London, and things were fairly stressful for me, and I was running my life and running my band.
Yeah, you're a Canadian guy, so living in Canada, sometimes living in Eastern Europe, sometimes living with us, and we got to know you then. I was a crazy hippie then too, smoking pods and doing crazy, clubbing and all of those things. So we went out to Poland together. You invited me for the gig. We went to Slovakia together. Remember the train? the train where we got stuck because there was so much snow. And since then it's been a long transition. I started my journey of orgasm, and now I spread this message, share this message, and teach around these subjects.
Great. So tell me about it, because let's face it, it's a controversial subject that a lot of people may just in your work on the first glance. How do you make people know that you're not just some sleazeball trying to, that you're actually concerned with intimacy, helping people become better people and helping people become more in tune with this very important part of their human being? It's like Sexuality is
Absolutely.
a part that, a lot of us are trained to be very out of touch with. And how do you make people feel at ease with listening to you about this subject?
Sure. I mean, I would say it hasn't been an easy journey, and it still isn't. Especially considering yourself as an orgasm coach, because the thing is, this is my image now for the rest of my life, right?
Well,
So
you could always reinvent yourself again. You were a banker before.
that's true. But what I'm trying to say here is that, doing something like this, especially on a bigger scale, it also means your family, your parents, your relatives, everyone that knows around you, there's a lot of things that you have to face, right?
Yeah.
So I've been
Okay.
through that phase. I've been to the places where sometimes people wouldn't allow me to come inside, or they wouldn't invite me to the parties or places because this is the thing I was doing. However, those were early stages. And now, having been an author, it slightly puts me in a different perspective. So what I would say to this is that the reason why I got into this is, I think I'd like to tell you a story that what made me actually get into this. I grew up in India, as you can see. I'm an Indian, and growing up in India at the age of 17, I realized that we don't really talk about sexuality in our society. I started looking around Kama Sutra, the world's first ancient sex scripture. It came from India, right? And I started noticing that there is rape happening, there is violence, there is domestic abuse to women, in spite of the fact that we have all these amazing erotic temples right in front of us. You have those big temples that are showing sexual positions, and that's part of our culture. You don't find this in every culture, but that's a part of our culture. So I grew up in that culture, but still talking about sex or orgasms or things like that was a big taboo. And that's
Yeah.
the
Okay.
time.
So, do you know why it became a taboo? Do you know why the culture you grew up with was so different than the ancient culture, which was, exploring sexuality and tantra and all that stuff? Did
I
you
don't
ever
know.
find that out?
This is something I always question, but I never got a chance to really go and find out in the history as to what really changed over the past 100, 205 year, 500 years. The only thing I can think of is I think that sexuality is something that really provides us that happiness and pleasure, and we that deep level of connection. But I think throughout the history, as people have tried to rule over others, they can't see other people being happy. Even if we take current environment, we have governments, they're doing their best, but there's always this kind of oppression that bigger power try to do, right? And I think that could be
Yeah,
one of the
yeah. Like
reasons.
materialism, for example, like the one people would know, I think, most in this day and age is like for marketing to work, to sell people a bunch of like new products and stuff, you need to make them feel dissatisfied with something so that they feel a lack in their lives. So they need to go and buy that new whatever car, dress,
Yeah,
get
from a
that
money
plastic
perspective,
surgery
right?
or something,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
make them unhappy with themselves. So yeah, that could have
I
evolved
mean,
like
this
that,
this is this is
maybe
this is
with
one of the
colonialism, who
things that I
knows.
can
But
think of. But of course there would be many more facets that would have played into it. But now for me, I'm like, okay, this is where we are, and I want to get back to a state where we can talk about these subjects openly.
and I
Because
think this is a really good time to do it. Like if you look at the human history, like the fact that we have the ability to discuss this stuff, like even in this format, like long format on the internet between two random people posted publicly, so that if millions of people want to watch it, they can.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's a time to have these discussions because people will listen. So
Absolutely.
the
And
floor is yours. Tell
one
us.
and one more thing is this, that whether you or me or any single person on this earth, they all came from a sex, right?
Yeah,
Parents,
yeah.
sex, or with somebody else. So it's not like something we got it from somewhere else, born in a cabbage, or or angels or fairies that delivered to our. It happened through a part of sexual connection between our parents, or between a man and a woman, right?
Okay, so
So
let's go back
why?
to India when you were growing up. I mean, like, how was it? How was it there to be? I'm imagining like sexually frustrated or repressed or
Yeah, I
whatever.
mean, at the age of 17, we now things have been changing quite a lot. We're talking about 15, 17 years ago. So at that point in age, we have a culture of arranged marriages. We have a culture of where sex happens after marriage. So I was born in that culture. However, there is still frustration because as a guy, I still have that sexual energy running from the age of 14 or 15,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
my access to knowledge is through porn, because even in my whole biology class, in the biology class where you're supposed to learn about the reproductive system, the sexual system, the anatomy, our teacher actually skipped the whole chapter where we were to talk about these things. Because of shame, because of embarrassment. Now imagine, she's a biology teacher. She's supposed to teach you these things. And as a student, as a boy, I'm growing up and getting excited about learning this. And you find that when the day comes, suddenly the whole thing is skipped on. And
But
those are the things that I started.
did you
Those
find
are
that
the
it was a
things.
thing? Yeah. Did you find that it was a thing that people were ashamed of talking to, and the way the shame was repressed made the urges come out in weird ways in society, like weird perversions and stuff?
Well, at that time, I didn't realize about the perversion, but I did realize that there is a little bit of shame. And even I was also a very shy guy too,
Yeah.
So that was around at the age of 15, 17. And by the time I grew up to 21, I said I want to work in the field of sexuality someday. But of course, how can somebody who's grown up in a small middle-class family in India where you don't even talk about these subjects, how can this ever be possible? So that dream just stayed with me. And then eventually things happened. I got a chance to come to London. I worked, got into banking sector, moved around, moved to Singapore, moved to US, moved back to London. And then I think it was 2 years ago. It was 2 years. Then I met you. And after that, in 2013 is when I started my journey of sexuality. And since then, I've never looked back. So I really started studying about orgasms. I studied about sex, doing a lot of explorations to understand what is this thing, and which led me to write the whole book last year.
Great.
So
And
you
how
can
much
imagine.
did you take?
You
How
can
much did you
imagine the
take from
topic
the?
of the topic of orgasm is so interesting, so complex, and so amazing that it need a whole book to understand it.
Absolutely, absolutely. At the same time, it is one of the most simple things to intuitively understand. But often, when people have sort of beliefs that are programmed over their intuition, you do actually need like lots of mental reprogramming to get past that and go back to being a natural human on the subject.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the natural programming that you're talking about is what we call, from an anatomy perspective, is the neuroplasticity. The neurons that get. So, for example, as at a young age, we as guys, when we watch porns, we have these habits that get created, and that's the reason why people get addicted to porn, because those pathways, the neural pathways, have become so strong.
Yeah.
So one of the works, I said I'm a body worker. So as a body worker, what I do is in helping rewire those brain wires. Because it's not easy. It's easy to create something from scratch. It's easy to create a new habit, but it's very difficult to change a habit, especially something that is so strong, so powerful, relating to porn. And the reason why that happens is because we get into a state, what is called the flow state. If when we guys are watching porn, our hormones kicks in, dopamine kicks in, and we start getting into that flow state. That's why it becomes so difficult for us to stop it, even if when we want to stop it, right? And then the concept around sexual energy is never explained to us, right? What we do as guys, we see that the guy end up ejaculating, climaxing, and then he's done with. Now, if you apply the same concept in actual life, in actual relationship, it doesn't work. It might work for first few times, when you're connecting, when you're seeing somebody, but over a longer period of time, it doesn't work. Why? Because nobody shows us that both men and women are different. So our anatomy is different too, which means our ways to access orgasms are different as well. Right?
Yeah, it's definitely true. And yeah, that goal-oriented sexuality that a lot of men sort of develop based on not actually exploring the energy and going for this, like, the quick
Yeah.
release of watching pornography. I mean, that's pretty much what the repression leads to, right? It's
That's
that
absolutely right. Right. And now
so much energy builds up in you, and then when you do have the chance to see some boobies or something, then suddenly you just really quickly just blow your load and explode, and then you want to go take a nap,
and you
basically.
get tired because the energy is released from the body. It's a very powerful energy is get released. That's the reason why you feel tired, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I've been experimenting with semen retention since I was like 21 years old, I think 20 or
Uh-huh.
21. And
Uh-huh.
so that that for me was really interesting to actually at such a young age start hacking that and exploring that difference and becoming actually sexually very different than like 99% of men out
How
there.
did you come to know about this? I mean, I only started doing this since over the past 5-7 years now, but how, you
Right.
said
So,
you're 21, so how did you come to know about it, and what has been your experience?
yeah, so when I was a teenager, I was raised by hippies, right? My dad and my mother were hippies. They grew up in the hippie time, and so very open-minded upbringing to begin with. Like lots of ideas and whatever. And then me and my friends who had grown up in that community, we started, doing some psychedelics as late teenagers. Trying some mushrooms and smoking weed and stuff. And then we started getting into astrology, and then we started getting into and then one of my friends just said, hey, try this. And
oh, you mean the breathing and
the breathing
yeah.
and don't, and then pull back and see what it's like to sort of hold back and build the energy. And so I was, and so we started, I had someone to talk with it about, and it became part of my part of who I am, actually.
Was it easier for you to kind of get into that rather than moving away from goal at that age? Do you recall?
Well, the goal-oriented sexuality still remained in some way, and still does. But but what this sort of does is it makes the goal to feel better in yourself all the time and become one sort of walking sort of receptacle or broadcaster of energy, right?
Yes,
And so the
absolutely.
goal-oriented thing, where the goal, there is no goal, because the goal that most people have to ejaculate actually makes you feel like you just lost a lot of your intelligence and a lot of your sort of juju energy.
Yes. So what I teach is I help men to, how do you transmit that that frustration, that not being able to hold, how do you transmit that energy which is right in your cock, in your genitals, all the way into your body?
Yes.
Because when that happens, we start having, as you said, we start having those big radars of receptivity, our energy levels, because it starts getting transmitted. First of all, one very important and interesting thing that happens is the guys don't end up falling asleep right after sex, right? Now imagine if you end up having sex and you are still fully charged up, right?
Yes.
Imagine how much fun and happiness that will bring in a relationship, because your partner, she would not feel that she's being left alone.
I know
she
how
would
that
not
feels.
feel that you have been very
I know what
selfish.
it's like, because that with women,
Right.
like you
Right.
just, it's just like you're lying in bed together for hours. It flares up, you're having
Yes,
sex, then you lie back down again and start
absolutely
gazing in each other's eyes, and then it comes time and you start having sex again, then you fall asleep, but then you wake up in the middle of the night and the urge is there full power again. And
beautiful. You see, the thing is this, there used to be time before I started this journey, my partner doesn't like sex that much. My women don't like that much kind of sexual connection, and I didn't realize, but that was my concept, because as a man, I was always ready 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, right? She says, "Honey, would you like to have sex?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm ready," right?
For 5 minutes.
Well,
20
I wouldn't
minutes.
see it for 5 minutes, but I'm ready. You know what I mean?
and she well, it's just, because that can be very disappointing to a woman, to actually want to explore an intimate situation, and to quote the expression, a guy is just interested in wham bam, thank you ma'am.
Yeah, and the thing is generally we as a guy, this is what makes it even more interesting, is that we as men, when we are in a relationship, we have this big desire to do and please our partner. We want her to feel good about it. We are ready to do anything that it takes so that we can show her we are the best, guy who can provide her the most orgasm, right?
Well,
however, in spite of having this desire, still something happens that we can't do that over and over again, and that's why she starts getting frustrated.
It is that sort of thing where you are that person until your personality completely flips as soon as you ejaculate, and then you become just pacified and no longer interested in sex, right?
I was teaching a workshop last year, and somebody asked me, so what's the difference between sex and lovemaking? right? I said sex is an act. It's an act of receiving and giving pleasure, and that's pretty much it. Whereas lovemaking is more about building connection. Lovemaking is a practice. Lovemaking is something where your level of consciousness increases by the time you finish that connection. It should not decrease, right? So that's what I call it. Because in reality, actually, when you are connecting with your partner, is going to be uncomfortable, is going to, because that energy is when they're going to start, ripping into your cells. It will feel uncomfortable. A lot of other things will come out, but that's the part of the growth. That's where it's considered that love making is a practice of growing together.
And yeah, and a lot, yeah, it's just, this is, the society is so superficial in the way that it views relationships. It's sexuality has been, it's been cheapened and sort of commodified, and just used in all sorts of marketing and stuff like that, that I think, like, you know okay, so there's that. And then previously you had what you talked about, like a traditional society with arranged marriage and all that stuff. And then it went into the stage of, hyper capitalistic individualist society, right? Where everybody's like, it's about me, and I want to get laid, and I want to get this, and I want to fuck this blonde over here, and all this stuff. And I want to have like 5 different girls, and they're not connecting at all, right?
I mean,
They're having lovers.
this happens right now, right? This happens in every big cities.
Yeah.
Even in India right now, actually, now for the past couple of years, this is getting to a stage where women start having different partners, men start having different partners, and because they're adopting the Western culture, right?
Yeah.
Now, in my view, there is no harm. There's no harm in sleeping around with different people. As a man, we want to sleep around, and as a woman, you should also sleep around too, if this is something you desire. But in my view, at some point in time, if you want to go deeper into sexuality, you got to have one person. You can have other people too, but to go deeper.
Just my guide was always like, I saw lots of people do lots of things that they regretted with random hookups at parties or whatever, and felt awkward afterwards and stuff like that. My thing was always like, okay, there's 3 Erics that have to agree on this, on me going and doing this with it, even if it's just like a one-night stand, which I'm not really that into, but it of course has happened. I was always the one after the one-night stand who wanted to connect again, but sometimes it happens. But 3 Erics have to agree for this. It's like this one, and the one down there.
So mind, heart, and your call, or your energy, yeah.
And my dick, yeah. So if all 3 kind of think it's a good idea, then I'll do it. But if one of the 3 is out of alignment, if one of the 3 is kind of like hesitant, it's like, then don't, because you'll probably feel weird about it afterwards.
Yeah, but
right?
but this is the thing, is what you have is very rare. It's not everybody who goes with that kind of mindset. A lot of people, especially men, they don't really care about whether everything is connected.
Yeah, it's because I've been doing this tantric sort of self-control practice since I was like 20 years old. That's how that came.
I have a confession to make as well. Before I started this journey, I was one of those guys that, all I wanted to do is have sex. I don't care, who she was, whether I can relate to her or not. As long as I get to have that sexual thing, I'm okay. Of course, I'm not looking for a relationship, but this is what I was kind of looking for a whole. But now, over these years, now I don't go with that. I can't just go, even if I have the most beautiful woman in front of me, I wouldn't want to have sexual connection unless and until all these things are aligned,
Yeah, exactly. So how would you, as we're 2 men, it's easier for us to talk about that. How would you recommend that men transition into, like, say you're a guy and you're in your 20s or 30s, you've gone around, you've done that, you've had sex with, dozens of women or whatever it is, and you're pretty proud of yourself and stuff because you've got a huge like wank bank of all these beautiful women that you've been with, but that there's something missing in your sexuality because you've done too much, and like it didn't satisfy you. You always wanted wanted more.
Yeah.
And there has to be somewhere you can go. It's not just about numbers, but it's about the quality of connection. How would you suggest that someone who's been through that and wants to go to the next level makes
I would say, it's going to be a transition. So whenever you're making any transition, it's always a phase. You have to plan it out. If a man says, "Oh, from tomorrow I'm gonna change," this is not going to happen. I mean, it might, but generally it will not work. Because there would be sexual energy charge, there will be resentment, there will be energetic blockages. All those things will still be holding true, right? So it's more of a question of, see, the thing is this. On one side, first of all, okay, you desire to connect with somebody, but that connection would take time, right? If you are looking for a partner, that dating,
and meeting the person takes time,
and you're meeting the person, that dating, that intimacy, all of those will take time. You have to find the right person who's also willing to accept you the way you are and connect to you. So that time frame could be 3 months, 6 months, depending on where you are, whom how open and how confident you are. Now that is on one side. However, your sexual energy is going to be with you every single day, right? So what needs to happen is there needs to be a process that needs to follow, that you learn how to tap into that sexual energy and start working it through. So which means that, like you said, the breathing techniques, there are a lot of different techniques you can do. So one of them is the breathing technique. So start, rather than, we are not really conscious of our breath when we breathe, because our breaths are generally shallow until the lungs. In order for us to become multi-orgasmic, one of the things we need to do is to be able to start breathing deeply into our belly and even more lower. So a man starts, developing this habit as a daily practice. Every single day he do, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, and just carry on doing that. So that's one of the things. Second thing, as a man, what you can also start doing is start working on your PC muscles. Your pubo-coccygeus muscles are the muscles which are the sexual muscles, which gives you so much turn on. And the more you're able to harness those muscles, the more you'll be able to channel that energy. Now, again, working on those muscles is not easy, because when you start working on that, it will generate so much energy, so there needs to be an outlet. So if you have been watching porn, it's okay to continue watching porn. Just make sure you're bringing that breathing element, you're bringing those contraction and expansion of those muscles during the watching porn, because this is the transition you're making.
Yeah, I think it took me about 4 or 5 years of practicing the tantric sort of building of energy and all that stuff until I no longer felt the need to watch any porn. It took me about 4 or 5 years, and then it just became so different, because the inner world of sexuality and the memories of encounters that I'd had with real people became so rich that porn just seemed like it was, first of all, like pointless and shallow, and second of all, it was confusing my inner sort of map of who I am as a sexual being.
Yes, I describe, absolutely. You're so absolutely right. This is what exactly happened with me too. So I was addicted to porn growing up in India from the age of 15, 17, and then
do you remember the dial-up internet when you used to download a picture and it was like slowly going down, like, oh, boobies, 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 stomach, 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 vagina. Oh, yeah. You remember that one? Dial-up porn.
Yeah. So there were all these different phases, and even like getting excited by looking at magazines, nude pictures. So all of those things exist, right? So this is what I would suggest. It's like a plan. Imagine,
and it's like
you want to build up your body.
adolescent phase that I think a lot of men actually don't get through. That's something that, as a teenager, obviously when you're 13 or 14 years old and you start seeing women's bodies and stuff like that, you're going to be really curious. But yeah, you have to get past that, right?
Yeah. So this is what I would suggest. So it's a plan. Just like you have a diet plan, you have you want to build up your muscles, you're gonna develop a plan. In the same way, if you want to move away from that urge of moving away from sleeping with so many different people, but actually wanting to connect with somebody, it's a plan. So 90-day plan or 120-day plan, and working on these slowly and gradually. And then, of course, you can always reach out to me. My name is Michael Charming. If you need some advice or guidance, Erik can also share, and there are a lot of other people within this field. So don't what's more important is to recognize that this is what you really want, and then have a buddy. When we have buddy to work with somebody, that person can hold us accountable. Because I tell you, it took me about 6 months of real work to get away from the habit of not watching porn, and it was like my real deep breathing all the time, right? And so having budding up can definitely makes the path easier. And yeah, like you said, once we start get to the idea of not wanting to porn and just enjoying this feeling, life is completely different. The quality
And
of life is very, very different.
and also, okay, so the next question is, okay, so that's for men. What about for women? Because women have a completely different journey in a lot of
Yeah,
cases, like for this, because they have like for them it's a completely different thing, and I believe like trauma plays a much bigger role
absolutely, absolutely.
in not being able to open up sexually and not being able to enjoy sex, and then having these men who are only interested in this transactional sort of quick encounter might reinforce some of that trauma, reinforce some of that feelings. So where, like, I know you're not a woman, and neither am I, but I know you do advise women in your practice. So
Yes, I mean,
let's speak a little bit.
90% of my clients, when I work, whether as a coach or as a body worker, 90% of my clients are actually women.
Okay,
So
so
I deal with
let's
men
go from that
less.
perspective. Say you're a woman in her, let's say, 20s or something, and you haven't really been able to find sexual satisfaction with men.
I
You've
would say,
tried hooking up and all
yeah,
that
I would say
stuff.
for women, generally it comes down towards later of late 20s, so late 20s, early 30s, because the thing is, generally both men and women, when they are in the culture, we are driven by, we do things sometimes we might not want to do, but because our friends are doing, because it's everybody doing it, we end up getting into that culture, right?
The
So
hookup culture,
the
the
hookup culture,
superficial, yeah.
getting
How would you
drunk.
transition out of that if you were a woman in her
So,
20s, late
so
20s?
for a woman, I would say is, yeah, like you said, the trauma will definitely play a big part. It doesn't mean that there won't be any trauma for men too. I mean, there could be a trauma for men as well. Why they got into these hookup is because maybe they had a heartbreak, or they had all these other,
Sure.
inferiority complex and all of that stuff. So trauma will happen in both, but with women it's slightly more possibly of more larger, because they are more in terms of physical, they're more of a receivers, right? So they receive that sexual energy. Of course, when we are in a deeper context, there's no receiver or giver. We both are receivers and givers. But at least on a surface level, women are receiver. And for that, I think one of the first things to recognize is whatever your experiences have been, just recognize that that was part of your journey. For whatever reason you did it, whether you liked it or whether you were out of obligation or whatever, and that's okay. But you are where you are now, and now you're looking forward to creating a new future, right? You're looking forward to creating new life for yourself, something that you desire. So the next step in that would be to list down things that you really desire in a man. What kind of man you really desire, because a lot of times what women do is they compensate their desire because they don't get them met, right? So make sure that next time, now when you're going into this, you stay true to your desire, that I'm no longer going to sacrifice my desire for something else. So that's one thing. The third thing I would say is to do an exercise where it's important to start having those emotional releases. So there could be a resentment that would come up from the past, from your past experiences. There could be a lot of unexpressed emotions that are being held. So to start doing those exercises, there are many different ways to do that. One of them could be start writing an inventory, maybe going back into your life from your sexual connection, and start and not really reflecting on the person whom you were with, but what was that kind of experience for you, and what are the things that you would want to say now, which were not said. So start writing them down, and then doing that inventory let out, right? So that's one of the ways. Second ways is to start feeling, as women are generally more tuned into their body, is to start feeling where in their body, it's more of a self-scanning, deep meditation exercise to see where are you feeling tension or blockages or hurt and pain, and then helping them release through different ways of exercises, right? Third thing I would say is the body work, which is what I do, is I work on so body work, just to give a bit of an idea, body work is on the actual body of a human. The sessions are generally two kinds of sessions. One is the close on session, so the person is completely clothed on. The second session is more like a person is completely naked. So depending on wherever they are, how much they feel comfortable with this kind of work, we do, so there are these different kind of sessions available. And what I do is I help in identifying where are the blockages stored, where is this tension stored. Because if you think about this, energy, the role of job of the energy is to flow. Like even if you boil a water in the kitchen, and that steam just flows out, right? So that's the nature of the energy. In the same way, the energies which are running in a body, their job is to just flow through different energy pathways. But if those pathways are blocked, then the energy cannot flow. As a result, things will start feeling tense. So if you are a person who is feeling unhappy during sex, or if you're feeling tension, or you're feeling pain, whatever that kind of pain would be, it's because there are these energy blockages which are still existing. So then the question would be to start working on unblocking them through different modalities. So these are few things that I would recommend from a women perspective. And then the last thing I would say for now is, start going into owning your sexual power. Women, you are a very powerful, you are the creator of us. Women create everybody. They give birth to people, so they have a lot of feminine power. So instead of suppressing and stopping it, the next goal is to start opening and connecting with your the pure feminine goddess power you are.
Okay, so I have a question. Okay, so when I was exploring the tantric sort of non-ejaculation path in my 20s, I found that a lot of that, it was very interesting to sort of see that when I did accidentally ejaculate, it was a lot of the time happening when things were, I was having a fantasy in my mind, which was not somehow pure, which was like somehow it was some emotional thing which was like negative somehow, and that was turning me on somehow, and I would ejaculate sort of like accidentally and go over the edge, and then it would release that energy, and then slowly I would start to learn how to have pure sort of sexual fantasies and feelings while I was masturbating. And so basically, right, so that helped me purify my intent, my because a lot of people have these weird fetishes. A lot of people have like S&M and all this stuff like that really might just be like some sort of trauma actually manifesting in their sexuality.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned this topic, BDSM or fantasies. This is going to be the topic that I'll be bringing into my second part. I wrote my first book, part one, Amplify Your Orgasm, last year. I'm going to be working on my second part next year. And this is where I'm talking about these aspects. So in my view, having fantasies, fetishes, I think it's okay. We are human, and we all got to have our sexual desires plays out in different ways.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with having those first, but there are a few things to consider. First of all, that we're not doing anything that's harmful to the other person. So if we have a fetish,
but I'm talking about like trauma in terms of
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. So the other thing would be, getting involved in a big community like BDSM, where you're torturing yourself or playing out on others as a part of being a dominant and exercising on the other. Now, this could happen because of like you said, trauma. There could be something sometimes in the past, maybe when you were growing up as a child, you found your parents were very dominating, right? Or you found that there was your partner was very aggressive, and when your partner left, there was a lot of hurt and pain, and now you want to take
unfortunately
revenge.
abuse in the household, both violent and sexual, can still be
abuse
a
in the
big
household,
problem in our society,
or even in the work environment. Your work environment could be so stressful, or could be your boss could be so dominating that you exercise to take the revenge, but it comes out in a sexuality by being a dominatrix. So there are all these different facets that comes and plays out. And I think what I would like to suggest here is to look back into your area. So for example, if you are keen on having these fantasies and fetishes, I would like to invite you to look into those areas from where is it actually first began, and when the moment when it first began, how was your life in other aspects? How were the other aspects of your life playing part at that time? And start seeing if you can reflect and build a path that led you to where you are. Because in my view, while yes, we all, spanking is good, and using nails and all of those things are good, because then sometimes when we are when we are having sex with a partner, we do all of those things, so they're all amazing. But at the end of the day, what needs right? So whatever we do, if it's not feeling up as a part of a pleasure, then it means that there is something stored in our body as part of a trauma.
Okay, so how would so I started approaching all of that stuff and that sort of weird, any sort of weird negative energy in my sexuality that I found through masturbation. Is there a way that women can explore the same way and sort of look deeper? Is it more of, like you mentioned, more emotional tactics, writing a journal and stuff? But
I think yes. I think for women, it's generally the way. I mean, of course, what we're talking here is more generalizing, right? Every person would be different, but from a generalizing perspective, the way things work for women are completely opposite to the way it will work for men. For women, it's more about giving themselves a permission, so if they feel that they have been very subservient to their partner, then they need to actually go and exercise the dominance by going into these communities, so that they can actually play out full. I'm not saying you have to, you can do that with your partner too, but just recognize that, you are allowed. Give yourself that permission to feel that what you have not been allowed, and go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So breaking free of the boundaries. So yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
yes. Of course, for women is very. I mean, for both partners, whatever you're doing is always important to make sure that you have a consent. The environment is safe. There's a full support provided.
Yeah.
Not only during the time, but also afterwards. Maybe a few days, few hours afterwards, you have that support, because a lot of things will come out. So it's important. Right support can help you empower, can change your track of sexuality. Not having good support can actually keep you. Can be very destructive, and can actually keep you trapped within that same loophole.
So I had it's interesting, but I had one, and after I broke up with her, I asked her, like, any feedback on me and the relationship, and she told me, you gave me too much freedom. And then I was like, okay, that's interesting. And her thing was that I should have been more like trying to be a bigger part of her life. And then the girlfriend after that, she was from another country. I won't list the countries because it's not really relevant. But the next girl after that, same me, but pretty much the same sort of behavior. She told me, I felt like you were trying to put me in a cage. And so it's really interesting. That's like the same me. So one girl thinks that I gave her too much freedom. One girl thinks that I was trying to dominate her, control her too much.
Yes.
And
see,
so it's
in my first chapter, I talk about emotional sensitive spots in our body, right? So or triggers, right? So what does every person, we all know that ignoring sexuality for 1 second, we know that as human beings, we are all different, right? That's what makes us unique. No matter, even children born from the same parents, twins, they're also different, right?
Yep.
So given that we are all unique, it also means that our sexual experiences, the way we see things, are also very different, right? So in your first case, where the girl felt that you were giving her too much freedom, and she felt that you were not being concerned about her, maybe it has more to do with the fact that she desires you to ask more questions. She desires, she's born in that environment where she feels that people are, I mean, there's something to look at.
A more controlling father. Yeah.
Like more controlling father, or more loving father. So if she's grew up in that environment, this is how she got used to it, And in that case, I mean, I do coaching with couples and singles, and these are some of the things that comes up, right? For example, for men, it's like, how do I stay in the relationship while because I want to have my freedom, right? So in your case, it was the other way around, right?
So actually, I am that guy. I am that guy. Because actually, just to tell you the patterns, what I was the only child of two only children. So I had my two parents and three grandparents, and I was the only child there. And so three women, two grandmothers, and my mother, and I was like the whole world for them. So all of the female attention in the family and was focused on me. And so my natural reaction towards women became like, yes, I'll be really charming. Yes, I'm your I'm the guy, you know, I'm the prince, you really enjoy me, you like me. But then as soon as it's sort of like I have a too much sort of thing. As soon as it's like it's too much, so I tend to push women
yes.
away.
So
I tend to.
in your case, when you were growing up, did you had that space where you could tell these ladies that you need your time? And when you said that, were you given that space?
I don't really think so. Not entirely. So how would I work on that, for example?
Yeah. This is. I mean, I was assuming that you wouldn't be, because the thing is, from a
Maybe
we all
maybe I was able to be alone, but the emotional thing, it's called enmeshment or whatever, like where
yeah.
you
So I think
too much.
yeah. So what happened in the past is okay. You know, there's a lot of things that play into part, and of course,
It
receiving
has to
love
be
and
okay
care
because
is
it's the past.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the past, you know, and receiving love and care is generally nice, right? So I think what I would say now is it's more around having discussions, you know, whomever you are in relationship with, and say, look, I need time for myself
Hmm.
now, and it has nothing to do with how you are towards me. It's just that this is for my own self, and I will come back to you when I feel I'm ready, right? And
Okay.
so when you have that kind of communication, then ask her, I've said this, how is that making you feel? You know, at some point you might say, oh, seems very strange, because for me, you know, I should be able to come and speak to my partner anytime, right? So these are the
Yeah.
first thing that might be her reaction instantly. And it's about under giving that space of hearing each other and say, look, I hear you, and yeah, I think it's an amazing thing, but we are just coming from a different history, so we will just have to work through, so there'll be a little bit of friction around this area, maybe for a week, for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but we'll work through, and you just keep that communication. So what would that mean? He says, you know, for first time you say, okay, I would go for 4 hours, leave me away for 4 hours, and let me come back to you after 4 hours. So after 4 hours, you might not want to come and spend time with her, but just the fact that you message her and say, hey, look, I think I need another 3 hours or 2 hours, that just builds that kind of, you know, the path that you would want to follow. So
Yeah,
yeah.
but also there's this sort of thing where I've found that it seems like I naturally that, or at least a few times, with that attitude of like, yeah, I'll be the super like focused on the girl and really into her and really giving her everything she needs, and then I'll pull away,
Uh-huh.
right? Right, and so that's the part that does this push pull thing. And and a few times I've attracted these girls who had, you know, fathers who were kind of distant, focused on, you know, for example, you're like a, you know, successful businessman father, and I get girls like that. So, you know, it does fit with my sort of upbringing of being upper middle class, sort of like, you know, to have girls like that who are coming into my life. But there's always this sort of, they always have this reaction when I sort of push them away, which is like some sort of heartbreak, you
Okay,
know,
so
because
let
daddy
me let
didn't
me
give
ask you
them
this:
enough.
when you push yourself away, do you desire to disconnect with them? Do you desire to
No,
leave them? No,
no,
right? So
no,
so
no,
you
no, no.
see
It's
the
just,
underlying,
yeah.
yeah, the underlying intention is not. However, we need space. You know, women will also need space sometimes, right? So it's
Hmm.
just recognizing that it's their desire of the space and nothing more. So if a woman doesn't understand that, then, you know, there would be times where she would want the space, right? Then just reflecting back and saying, look, at that time you needed the space and I gave you the space, right? In the same way, I have my own need, and it's just I'm just honoring that need.
So
So
yeah, but like, you know, them taking me needing space as a personal insult, and me having a part that reacts to that being a personal insult, and that whole drama. It's like how to break that cycle, you know, in
the
relationships and
best the
stuff.
best way to break that cycle is both is to the person first understand what needs are and how do they get played out, right?
Yeah,
Because unless
yeah.
until we have the kind of education, the person wouldn't understand what you're asking. So it's maybe, you know, maybe looking for an online course or a YouTube video so that the person can understand from a curiosity perspective, from an openness perspective, that what does needs mean. You know, we have our biological or physical or all these different needs, and then maybe you can do an exercise and say, okay, what is your need for now? What is your need right now for yourself? What is your need for in a relationship right now with me? You know, what is your need for tomorrow? You know, so exercising, because what you're bringing in, you're bringing a new a concept that should have been existing in a relationship, but because it has never been taught to us, so it's a new concept, it's a new foreign language, and you're bringing to integrate that into your life. So it will take some time, and then once we have start having, see, the thing is this: one thing is this: you wouldn't be with that person, or that person wouldn't be with you if you don't have a good level of understanding in the first place.
But also I find that a lot of these women, and I'm describing a type of woman that I do see again and again in my life, they're so used to being just told to shut up and hold it inside themselves that it's hard to get them to even open up
Oh
about
yeah.
what's bothering them, you know. And then it comes out in really passive aggressive ways. And my reaction, probably like their father's reaction is just like, listen, if you can't even tell me, then just like leave me
No,
alone about it, you know. And so it's
this is
like,
where, this is the thing, right? In my book, I talk about, as a human body, we have 5 layers. You know, what does that mean? Is that first is the physical body, right? What we see each other at a physical level. This is the physical body, right? Then we have the mental body. The mental body consists of our consciousness, our belief system, our mind, right? Then we have the emotional body. Our emotional body consists of emotions, feelings, sensitivity, right? The fourth we have is the energetic body, right? So energetic body. So when we start reacting, one of the things that's actually happening is the energetic body. I'll give you an example. Say there are 2 people who are fighting on the road across the street, right? Imagine you're in a very happy mood, right? You don't know, you got nothing to do with them. But whenever we see that or hear that fighting, suddenly our state changes, right? Why? Because that anger energy, that so high power energy is coming and directing at us, which is impacting our stage. So imagine when we are feeling that level of thing with something that's happening right far off, which we got nothing to do with it. Imagine how would that feel, or how much we will react when this happens in a relationship with somebody whom you feel we have some kind of control or codependence.
And some sort of thing that you're trying to maintain, some sort of thing you're trying to build, and some sort of
right.
future that you're trying to do. So I mean, does it just come, it usually comes down to just having more discussion with the right framework of ideas?
There's quite a few different things to look at, because the reason I'm saying that is because I used to be like that too. You know, although I'm a very happy person, and of course you have seen me as a very happy person too, but also I grew up in India, right? So
everyone's got a shadow.
Everybody got a shadow. So in India, anger is like is in our nose. You know, it's in the fingertips. You say it and we are ready to shout. So what does that mean? Is that in a relationship, when my partner shows something, whenever there's an irritation, my anger would come out as a constant reaction without even me aware of it, right? So what would happen is, it would mean that we would need to work together in a relationship, because your partner or you would be triggering each other, but at the same time, we will need to work together on it. So first is, of course, the awareness. You know, so when that thing happens, we become aware, we talk about it, you know, and then we after a few days, after a few hours, you say, hey honey, I'm sorry, and all of that, right? So that's the discussion part, right? But what needs to happen is managing the energy part, which is where the energetic come into play. So for example, when you have your partner coming up to you with a charge, all you do is start, as soon as you recognize, oh, this is what's happening, you start working on your energy, you know, start working on your breath, start feeling grounded, and let that person say whatever they need to say. You know, of course, in the first few times you will have the reaction, you know, the second time that reaction will slow down. So over a period of time, maybe 5-6 weeks, 10 times later, you'll be in a stage and say, you know what, I'm in a stage now, she can come and shout at me, but I'm not going to get impacted.
Yeah, but I got really good at that. I got really, really good at that, at not being impacted by women freaking out and stuff like that, and sort of just going, I'll just wait for her to talk it out, take a brief breath. It's nothing about me. This is stuff inside of her head. But then I found that a lot of women, if you don't give them the outlet for that sort of drama that they have built up and that sort of trauma that they have to live out, they'll go
well, the
out
thing is,
for it.
the thing,
Just be that
yeah,
guy on the side.
The thing is, this is because women are looking for drama. The reason they're not intentionally looking for drama, they have been brought up in that space.
Yeah,
subconsciously,
it's a pattern.
because they, you know, if you're reacting, they're expecting you to react back, right? If you don't react, they get even more reactive, you know, over a period of time. So the question I would like to ask is, and say, hey, would you want to use this energy into fighting, or would you want to use this energy into creating something together nice and beautiful and having amazing experience, right?
Well, makeup sex is pretty good, isn't it?
Makeup sex is good. It's a good energy, good, but you can't use that makeup sex every single time. You know, makeup sex, if it's coming out of obligation to make things good, it's not the right way, because women over a period of time, women wouldn't feel good about it. You know, there needs to be things that needs to be said. There needs to be things that needs to be expressed, and makeup sex cannot always compensate that, right? Imagine, for example, you have been very angry at a certain thing that your partner did for whatever reason, right? And she comes and she starts doing you all this, she starts giving you blowjob and all. Yeah, that might make you feel good, but at the end of the day, that thing is still there in your body. You
If
still
you're
feel,
repressing the energy led to it,
yeah,
yeah.
it's still there.
It's
So
like
at
the
some point
rinse and
afterwards,
it's
after the
called
sex is over,
rinse and repeat, right?
yes,
You're just gonna do the cycle again.
yes.
The
So
whole
that thing is
thing's
all
gonna
again. And
happen.
what I work with couples is I work on removing these patterns, removing these things, because at the end of the day, I would rather spend 100% or 99% of my time in having sex and pleasure and enjoyment, rather than spending 99% on feeding into that drama energy that doesn't lead anywhere, right?
Okay,
So one last thing on this is that this reflection would need work on both sides. If only one person is working and the other is not, then it would not work for both the partners to go and enjoy this life together on this journey. Both of them partner have to be willing to commit to work. Now, of course, at one point you could be working more, you're putting more effort in, the other time the other person could be more putting an effort in, because that will depend on the emotional state, the psychological state, and all of that. But what's important is both of them to be willing to put the effort. And then you do the discussions, you hold the accountability, you draw the plan, and then you work together as a game, of improving yourself while enjoying the relationship.
right. So yeah, is that one of the reasons why you said that you need one person? I take it that you're more into monogamy than polyamory at this point in your life.
No. I am always, now for the past couple of years, I always want to have one person as my primary partner.
Okay.
So
So you are
who's
polyamorous,
I'm,
actually.
I'm I'm still a polyamorous, and I do have other to because the thing is this. These other partners are very conscious partners. It's not somebody off the street or somebody, they look nice. It's about, in a polyamorous relationship, it's you're playing with the energy dynamics of everyone. And that's why it's very important to understand, to be aware that whom are you bringing into this dynamic. Is that the person who's going to be taking your energy and pulling your sexual energy together, or will that person be contributing into your energy one way or the other, right?
Okay, so what's your sort of process for figuring out? So say you meet a girl for the first
Let
time and
me
you're on the
just
first date.
hold on your question for one sec. We will come to this. Just coming back to your previous question, did that answer your question of where you were pulling away from, wanting to pull away from your partner? So what you can do now is, instead of saying, "Oh, okay, fine, I'm gonna do my thing," my invitation to you would be to go and say, "Hey, is there any support you would like?" Because we want to relate together on equal terms, right? That's when things are amazing. So is there anything you would like to express? So if she hasn't expressed anything, instead of dismissing that, why is she not expressing, understanding what has been the history of her, because if you, so when we start coming and say, hey, look, you have not been saying things, I've asked you a couple of times, and I think for me relating would be really good, if we can both share some things, 20 minutes and she's staring for 3 minutes, that's okay, as long as there is some sharing happening, and then eventually things can build on over a period of time.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So the next question is, right.
Polyamory,
Your
right?
advice. Well, no, I was asking. Actually, it came out of that.
Okay.
So the what you presented is that in polyamorous relationships, you have to be aware of who's interacting energetically with you. So, say you are polyamorous. Say you're everybody knows that. Whatever. I don't know. But how, if you meet somebody new, how do you make sure that the energy that will be given and received and the experience that you might have together and whatever drama might happen in that process, how do you what questions would you, Michael,
Sure.
ask someone on in an initial and what would you look for in a woman when you're trying to figure out whether you should proceed in having an intimate relationship with them?
Sure. It's a very, very good question. I mean, one of the things that I see in today's world, which happens a lot, is people do polyfuckery in the name of polyamory. So they sleep around, and what rather than actually being in a polyamorous relationship, but they're using the terminology as polyamory. Polyamory is not about sleeping with many people. Polyamory is actually sharing love with one or two or three people that you are, and that it's a relationship you're building with different people at the same time, and what does that mean is that it would take a lot of effort, because like you said, there will be dramas coming up, there'll be jealousy coming, all of those things will come up by every single person, no matter how open loving you are, or no matter
So
how
do you believe
less
in,
loving
in
you are,
talking in a polyamorous relationship and telling everybody about everybody who you're sleeping with and all that
No,
stuff? Or?
it's not about telling everybody everything. It's more about having an open communication, because
It's more about you and who you are to the other person, and then you can be something else to someone else.
yes,
And
yeah. So you will have a different rules with different people. Some, for example, one partner might say, "You can do whatever you want. I'm not interested in hearing." And you got to respect that.
well, you probably would
The other
not want
partner,
to get diseases,
oh,
right?
of course. Yeah, I mean, that's a mutual respect, right? You will want
Yeah.
to, whom you will want to make sure, that you are following the normal protocols of keeping it safe, keeping it healthy. Not doing something that's going to be detrimental to you, to your partner, or the other person. So these are just the normal protocols that we will need to follow, irrespective whether we are in polyamory or not.
Yes.
Even if you're in any relationship, even if you're going out for us, even if you are hooking up for one night, you would still want to make sure that no matter how much drunk you are, you will follow the safety rules, because 1 minute of game can change your whole life, right? And especially when you are bringing other partners, it's not a mutual respect for another human being, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so the rules would be different for every single person in every single dynamic, and those rules will change. So you might have one partner saying today, "I don't want to hear about anyone else." The next day she might, or you might say, I want to start having different rules. So in polyamorous, your discussion, your communication, very important and will change very rapidly. So be aware of that, be curious of that, and then integrity is very important. So as for example, you might say, "I'm okay." Like I was when I first started this game of polyamory, I was like, "Yeah, I can love 2 women, I can fuck 3 women," But when it actually came down to being in relationship with 2 women, oh my goodness, it was so difficult to be able to give that, uh, you know, equally, unconditionally. Oh, wasn't so easy, and I had to work 3-4 months just on expanding my love, the love energy that we feel here. I literally have to work on using all the tools to be able to expand that energy. Because the thing is this: imagine if this is the amount of love I have at this point, and if I'm sharing with one person, that's 100% whole onesome, right? But imagine this is the amount of love that I'm sharing with 2 people, then it's actually half. That small amount of love has split into 2, make them complete and feel good, is when I expand that, because that's then ball of love is now being expanded, which can be shared, right? So whether you're a man or a woman, on so many different aspects when it comes to polyamory, this is my personal suggestion, based on my experiences, I would suggest that everybody to become polyamorous at least for 6 months, because we will grow far more sooner, far more quicker as a human being, and then we can come back to being monogamous, or if you don't want to become monogamous at all. But the level of communication, the growth is completely different.
Yeah, exactly. So then what advice would you give to me? So my situation right now is I am a 37-year-old guy like yourself. Basically, we're about the same age, born the same year. I'm pretty sure in '83, right?
Yeah.
And
A beautiful year
well,
of '83.
yeah. And so I've just spent the last 4 years very intensely working on my business, and the years before that I was in my band, like, and I'm kind of in a place where I finally made it. I'm finally off, and I haven't met that many girls lately. What would you give me as advice to go out and how should I present myself? Because I know I have this part of me, like I'll get a girl, she'll be really into me, and then I'll push her away, and I don't want to do that whole thing again. I'd rather be approaching the whole subject in such a way that I'm looking for an actual strong connection this time. I'm looking for something that's going to last. But part of me still sort of hesitates whether I really want to do that, or if I single, and have random hookups that happen,
Well,
a
okay,
few
so
times
I
here and there.
hear. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm actually hearing that you are actually really desiring a connection. You desire rather than
But
being
I'm
in a
also good
hookup.
at I'm also good at connecting with women as friends, and I'm also good at, from being in that friendship, also sort of having benefits, friend with benefits. But it's been a really long time since I actually fell deeply in love with someone, and that it actually worked and we were together, and it was happy that like, it's been half a lifetime since that happened, because the first time it happened when I was like 18, I fell deeply in love with this girl, and then the whole thing happened where I pushed her away and pulled her back and pushed her away and pulled her back, and then that ended, and I never really wanted to go there all in again. So, but I deeply crave that. So what would you suggest to me?
How do you feel about your past hurts, relationships? Do you feel there is
The
still some
one
part
when I
of...
was 18, yeah, I still feel like there's something there that I haven't completely processed, haven't completely healed. It still hurts. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what I would suggest, my first suggestion is to look at that aspect, to really do a healing on that aspect, because if that is existing, then no matter wherever you go, you are actually carrying that. We are like this is our body, right? So we are carrying whatever is in the body. So if that hurt is still there, then the question would be, what would it take for you? Like we said, in the past is past, right? So what would it take for you to actually now fully let it go as a person? Of course, this is not something you can answer now, but this is going to be a process, right? So that's the first thing I would focus on. Maybe one day going out in the sun, reflecting on it, feeling into your body.
I've done a lot of that. I've done a lot of that. I don't
Okay.
think I've got deep enough on the issue, but I'm pretty sure I know what's there, and I'm pretty sure that I am open for the right person to touch that same part that I sort of locked up for a lot of years. But it's something I would encounter with the right person. But I'm
Yeah,
very
I mean,
picky.
and I think is also when it comes to the right person, especially when we're looking in a relationship, it's not necessarily that person will trigger that spot, right? Would not necessarily touch
Yeah,
that spot, but but that person could touch so many other spaces, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
so it's also recognizing that, while you still have that and it's still there, and while you're waiting for the other person, just being open about it, and you
Well,
might
I'm open
find
enough
somebody
to, I'm
who...
going to post this on YouTube, and this whole story is going to be out there for the world if they want to see it, right? So that's pretty open. I'm open in a storytelling way, in a mental way.
Yeah. So
That's the thing about me that I think a lot of,
I mean,
yeah, a lot of
what I
women
would
find that
suggest
I'm
is,
really
what I
open.
was have you done any body work on yourself?
No, not
That's what I
like
would
a little
suggest.
bit,
That's
a
what I would
little
suggest,
bit.
because that's what I do with men and women. So I'm not saying that you do with me, but I'm saying there are a lot of different body workers who actually try work on emotional stuff and release. So wherever you are right now, wherever you find that there are good places, good body workers, to go and book sessions with them if they're really good, and have those couple of sessions, because this is what we do as a body worker. We don't work on mental stuff. We don't work on so much on the physical stuff. What we work on is releasing that emotional stuff
Yeah,
which
I
is
think
being
it's
held.
somewhere in the
And
second chakra there.
yeah, and when that is released, oh, then what happens is, you see that this is water, right? This is water. When this water is come out from the glass, then the next thing that needs to happen is a vacuum. It needs to be filled with something else, and the same thing happens with our energies too. When that trapped emotion is released, then we have a space, we have an opportunity to create something new. But we can't create something new if this has already been filled up by whatever past unexpressed emotion energy is. So that's one thing I would really suggest. I know you're very open, you like to do different things, so definitely look into it. And I've been working as a body worker for 3 years. I worked with about 80, 90 women and about 10 men, and I've not found a single person who has not found some benefits of it. Even I myself, I have received so many sessions, so I know what it feels like, what impact it can create. So that's one thing. Second thing is, if you're really willing, if you're really looking forward to building connection with somebody, of course, finding that person who can meet you at so many different levels, that can take time. But now also start recognizing that, that pulling away is going to happen. It's going to be there, but then start using your mental willingness to work it through, right?
And
So be open
just way about it,
to
right?
communicate in a more conscious way, to make
With the
sure,
other person.
with the other well, yeah, and there will be a lot of different things that will come up, but it's like, be willing to know that there'll be discomfortable situations that you'll have to deal through, and that you'll be able to work through, because whenever we have this willingness, we can always work through a lot of things, right? So yeah, and then after that, once that thing is clear, then it's no longer there. Something else will come up.
Okay, cool. So is there anything else you wanted to talk about this, or can we do a little blast from the past here?
I mean,
there's the laugh. You didn't laugh for like 45 minutes. There he is. That's my old friend Michael. All right, charming Michael. Okay, so I've got a little bit of a and 12 April 2012. It was when I was living. Sorry, I just.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it was 2012 when I was living in London. I started the lineup of my band, Erik and the Worldly Savages there. We had one trip where we went to Slovakia for a DJ weekend. That was really fun. And one of my favorite memories was, being stuck in the train station there and your laugh making a whole waiting room of people waiting for the train laugh. That was literally, yeah.
Yeah, we were three of us, you, me, and Uros. So we were
Uros, but then you flew out for the weekend in Poland when we were playing over there for in Warsaw, and so this was when you showed up to our sound check in Warsaw, and then the next day in the van when you just decided to get in the van and drive to the next city, even though you weren't going to the next city.
Yeah, I mean the thing is because I only came to Poland because you were playing in the band, so you were playing in Warsaw, and then the next day you were playing in Krakow, and I was like, okay, I have got my flight. I came in Warsaw and I'm flying back from Warsaw, but since you're going to Krakow, hey, I don't have anything else to do. I only came to support you. Let me just drop me halfway through wherever you
get in the van. No, it was like get in the van. It was like just get in the van. Hey, get in the van, dude. Get in the van. Right? Like who else do you want in the van? Anyway, so here's the sound check from Warsaw, and you playing with our megaphone, and here's and then some footage from the van. This is really fun.
Pushing the treetop.
Hold it down.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Adventures in the Van with the Band. Right now we have ourselves for you, our lovely man, Michael the Banker, about to get the orgasmatron on the head. Let us watch in stunned silence as he goes from pure ecstasy to pure
orgasmatron. This is when you probably...
I wasn't even started my orgasm journey then.
Well, this is the start. This was like a impactful moment then in your life then.
Yeah.
With this, I don't even know what these things are called, but that day it was called the orgasmatron. It touches the different sides of your head and gives you a really funny feeling.
I still remember
first
that.
time. The first time you felt that. This is me making you feel it.
or ecstatic bliss.
Pick up your glasses, man.
I made you take off your glasses.
All right, here we go. Are you ready?
I am ready.
And he's lost it, folks.
What talking about?
And there you have it.
God dang it.
The most ecstatic man in the world can't be having an orgasm.
All right, he's going to try it on himself.
He's going to try it on himself.
He couldn't handle it from my brutal hands. All right, here we go.
What a sound.
Push it all the way down.
And then some wild girls in Slovakia.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, those were the days, man. But these are still the days. I mean, like, it's weird. Yeah, so that was like 8 years ago. But, things are still good. We're different people now. Like, I've started my own business.
Yeah.
You're doing this thing. And you can really see that we're the same crazy guys, but we're more refined in the way that we're bringing our crazy energy to the more targeted, more sort of like ourselves somehow. Whereas then I felt like we were like working in London and, you know, like doing the society thing. And
Well,
then we were escaping on the weekend and releasing all this like frantic, crazy.
yeah. The
right?
thing is, at that time, you know, when I look back now, it's like it's the same energy, but that time we didn't know. We just acted out, so that energy just went out wherever it needed to go, right?
Like me screaming at people, jumping, making them. I still do it with the band. I still do it, but it's more refined now. The ideas are more refined. But yeah, it was like that crazy party, not sleeping, you know, drinking a lot, and like all this. And yeah, so your body kind of lets you know after a while that you do need to get better routines. You do need to sleep more.
The interesting thing is now is that now that I've actually been able to harness my energy, the sexual and the orgasmic energy, I am actually much more energized now than I was then. You know, I was energized then too, but now it's actually like, you know, now I'm working with my body, right? So it's much more
consistent energy. You're going for, so that's what I found through practicing yoga and body. Like, you want a consistent energy, and you don't want to blow all your energy and then have to spend 3 days recovering. You know, you want to figure out, like, if you're going to have a drink, you want to figure out a way to have a drink so that you don't have a hangover afterwards. If you want, you know, like, although it will happen still sometimes. And yeah.
Well, the thing is, you know, like at that time when we went to Bratislava and we, you know, the train, we had so many beers, right? 10, 12 beers each person that we were drinking, because we had like good long hour journey. 3-4 years later, after that, when I started this journey, of course, I had the habit of drinking. I was still going out while I was carrying on my orgasm path. So what used to happen was I would go out, I would get drunk, but then I would get hit so hard, you know, I would fall back into my energy level so badly that it would feel more terrible than me having a hangover and a vomiting and stuff. You know, I would feel more bad. So I continued doing that for a couple of months. I realizing, you know what, I can't handle what I'm doing, what I'm going on this path is much more organic, is much more healing, is much more beautiful. So why am I still doing those patterns? You know, why am I still going out and drinking to that extent? And then eventually I stopped drinking slowly, you know, like you said. Then it got to a point where I'm very conscious. I'm drinking one drink, it's still okay, and I'm still nice and feeling good and stopping it there.
Yeah, and then you wake up the next day and you still feel good.
Feel good about it, yeah. Because the thing is this, you know, energy conflict might be very unfamiliar to a lot of people. You know, people who are into tantra, who are into this, of course, for them, they understand energy like I understand as well now. But before I got into this, the energy, I used to say that these energy people, what are they talking about? This is so woo-hoo, you know, like it doesn't make sense. And so if you are one of those who think that this is all bullshit, what I would like to say is that, you know, think about in this, that whatever is happening in this life, you know, even my body that is doing is because the food that you have eaten is giving you that energy.
I've been working on that the last 8 years a lot, just like improving that. Yeah. And once you improve the food, once you find the finest ingredients and the way you want to feel after eating it, then you're there. What's the next thing?
So
the exercise.
The food that we have eaten is giving us that energy. Quality food we eat, the more better it will feel to our body, right? So this is just a normal chemical energetic process that's happening. In the same way, at the tantra level, there are what we have is called the 7 chakras. And those 7 chakras are like the energetic centers. So each chakra has got a different attribute to it. So for example, the center of the heart chakra, there's a reason why we feel so expansive or contracting when we are in love more from our heart, is because the heart chakra exists here. And it's a real energetic center. It's not something physical, you know, it's not something that you can see physically, but you will feel it eventually.
It's when like when someone hurts your feelings, you feel it right here. Yeah.
You feel it, yeah. You know, when we start feeling it, in the same way, there is something called the sexual energy center. It's right above the second energy center, right? So what I do on a daily basis is I work on that energy center. So I really feel that buzzing. Of course, I have to do certain things. I have to do certain yoga postures. I have to do certain kind of chanting to tap into that energy vibration, but that I actually feel it moving, you know. So what I'm trying to say here is that the energy is real. You know, you see this light, is because of the energy. Whatever happens in this universe is because of the energy. So the energy concept might sound very unfamiliar, but if you were to start rationalizing, then you'll see, oh, actually it makes sense. And then we have to do something to start feeling them into it. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I would like to actually invite you to two places. Places that I think you need to be in. They're the places that I've spent the most time in this year. The first one is, of course, Belgrade, Serbia. I've been inviting you for years. You got to come. You got to see the energy of this city, and you gotta experience it. And the second one is the island of Copenhagen in Thailand. Have you been there?
I've been to Thailand, but not to Copenhagen. Copenhagen.
Copenhagen. Yeah.
Copenhagen.
So it's full of lots of conscious people, yoga studios, tantra places, and all this stuff. And I would really like to spend some time with you there too. So maybe in the winter I'll see you there. You're welcome in Belgrade anytime. The borders are open now. You can fly in here. So if you have a free weekend this summer or something, feel free to come on over.
I would definitely like to. I know this offer you've been giving me for many years. In the past, I used like, oh, I'm waiting for a British citizenship. I've got the British passport now, and I haven't really traveled much.
So we'll talk about it. We'll book that, and then
I'm working on my second book, so it's almost in the last 5 weeks. So once I've laid down that structure, I'll be looking at the marketing plan. But I would definitely like to come to Serbia.
Great.
If not this year, definitely early next year. Like this is my definitely my desire to come.
Cool, man. You got to see this city, man. It's buzzing. Anyways, thanks a lot for the interview. I hope it's nice to catch up with you and see that you've learned a lot and that you're still smiling and laughing the same way that that's.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.